Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to solve systems of equations algebraically instead of graphically. You've done the graphs already. Now we're going to learn another method, and it's called substitution. Next year in Algebra 1, you'll learn the third method, which is elimination. Substitution is my favorite. I love doing this. I think it's super cool and pretty easy. So hopefully you'll like it too. By the end of the lesson, you will be able to solve systems of equations algebraically using the substitution method. So this is what the method is called. Okay, let me get my pen working here. Okay. Substitution is a method in which an expression or value is substituted for a variable in order to find a solution. These are kind of like solving like a little puzzle. So let's look at an example. Solve the system of equations algebraically. You have two equations, y equals x plus 2 and y equals 5. Yes, you could graph it and find a solution, but we're going to find another way because basically who wants to graph all these? Do you really want to get a graph paper out every time? I don't. So since y equals 5, that's super easy. You just replace y with 5 in the first equation. So right here, the first equation was y equals x plus 2. So you put a 5 in for the y and say 5 equals x plus 2. Solve it like a normal equation, x equals 3. And so therefore, the solution to the equations is 3, 5. All right, let's try another example. So it's really easy when they tell you right away what one of your variables is, because then you just plug it in to the next equation. So because they tell me that y is 5, I'm going to put 5 in for y and say 5 equals x plus 4. Well, then x obviously equals 1. My solution set would be, or my ordered pair would be 1, 5. Okay, now of course, I like to check my solution, so I'm going to plug it back in. So this is x, this is y, just like any ordered pair. So if I take 5 equals 5, like this equation, that checks out. And if I go with my next one, 5 equals 1 plus 4, well, that checks out too. So that is my solution set. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Okay, x minus y equals negative 4 and x minus y equals 1. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and show you how you would do this just so you can kind of see, and then hopefully you'll start to see kind of a pattern. But basically, you need to be able to do this, you need to get one of the equations with a variable kind of alone so that you have something to plug in. So I'm going to take this one, I think, and manipulate it a little bit. I'm going to add y to the other side. So x minus y equals 1. I'm going to do x minus y plus y equals 1 plus y so that I can get this y out of the way, and then you'll end up being left with x equals 1 plus y. Then I can take this and plug it into the other equation where you have an x. So then I'm going to say 1 plus y minus y equals negative 4. Go ahead and solve. Y minus y, that's weird. Now I'm going to be left with no y because y minus y is gone. And then you're left with 1 equals negative 4. What is up with that? That is not any kind of solution. So this is a no solution set of equations. You also know this because if you really look at it, I wanted to show you how to solve it, but if you look here, x minus y equals negative 4, and then could x minus y also equal 1? No, that's not going to happen because x and y would be the same numbers, and you can't subtract them one time and get negative 4 and then subtract them again and get 1. So that's a no solution situation. Let's go and do the third one. So again, you've got two equations. You always have to choose which one you want to plug into the other one. You always try to find the easiest one. So in this case, the easiest one is definitely this one because they tell me that y equals something. So I'm going to take that and plug it in for y right there. So I will say 4x plus 2 times the whole y, the whole expression, equals 8. Be very careful with your negatives as always. 4x, you must distribute here. 2 times negative 2x is minus 4x. And then 2 times 4 is 8, equals 8. Okay, we are left with 4x minus 4x, which is 0x, plus 8 equals 8. That's weird. Okay, so we have an equation that says basically 8 equals 8. That means whenever that happens, that means all solutions, infinite. Infinite, you can say infinite or all, whatever you want. Okay, so that's pretty much how you do those three. Now let's just take a look at the you try, see if there's anything weird about these. Okay, you'll be doing these three in your note check. This one's super easy, just like the first one. For number 2, you're going to need to manipulate this a little bit. You want to get one of the variables by itself. I would recommend you start with this guy and get x alone. Okay, that would be my plan. So try that. And then over here, you have two equations, and you want to get them to where you have a variable by itself. So you need to, you can manipulate it and see what you get, but I would probably start by saying, getting x by itself. So you could say, divide this by 3, and then divide this by 3, and then you'll be left with an x alone that you can plug in. You also could see if you can get the equations to sort of look alike. So like, for example, try bringing the y over to this side, and then it'll look very similar to the one above, and see if you notice something. These are some hints for you so you can find the solution. Those are your choices on how to go about solving those. Then we have a word problem. Of course we do. Word problems can be a little tricky with systems, I'm not going to lie. Some people have a really hard time with these. I used to have a really hard time with these, actually. So we'll do one together, and then you'll have one that you need to do in the note check. So what you're looking at from the word problems, you know how they were bad enough when you had to take a word problem and write one equation? Well, now you have to look for 2 equations. So you always want to identify some variables. You need to identify like an x and a y every time. So Matt scored a total of 16 points in 2 ball games. Okay, that sounds important. So I know right away that I have something where there's going to be a total of 16. In the second game, he scored 3 times as many points as in the first game. Write and solve a system of equations to represent the situation. Interpret the solution. Okay, so we know that I'm going to call x game 1. Okay, or the points in game 1. Y will be my points in game 2. We know that in both games they scored 16 points. So x plus y equals 16. That is our first equation. Then read here in the second game, so that's y, right? Y. He scored 3 times as many points as the first game. So you could say y equals 3 times x. And that's what you would have for your 2 equations. Now you got to go ahead and substitute or solve. This one's easy because they tell you what y is. So we will go ahead and take this and plug it in up here. So we would end up with x plus 3x, equals 16. So that's 4x equals 16. X equals 4, okay? Then, now we haven't done this before. So now we still don't know what y is for sure. So we need to take this guy and now plug it in to what the y was. So since x is 4, y equals 3 times 4, or 12. So our ordered pair solution is 4, 12. And the way it's, when it says interpret the solution, you're saying like words related to this. So you would say that Matt scored 4 points in game 1. So Matt scored 4 points in game 1 and 12 in game 2. And that's it. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the next problem. That's your word for your note check and see, make sure that you know what you're doing. So the length of a rectangular garden is 4 times its width. The garden has a perimeter of 280 feet. Write and solve a system of equations to represent the situation. Interpret the solution. First of all, I always think when they talk about shapes, it's good to draw your figure so you kind of have something to look at. And it says the length is 4 times the width. So you have a width So I'm going to call that W. And then this is going to be 4 times the width, okay? So you need to then come up with 2 equations. You also know this, perimeter of 280 feet, okay? So you could write 2 different equations. One, you want to talk about this right here. The length is 4 times its width. That could be one equation, and then you want another equation that has to do with the perimeter. And then you will solve it, and you will answer the question of like, what is the length and what is the width of the garden? If you have questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll help you get started. Okay, I know this can be a little tricky at first, but I really think once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And remember, you can always have 3 different types of solution. You either have a full intersection, like where you find one ordered pair that makes this situation or both equations true, or you could have no solution. Nothing would ever make both equations true, or all solutions. Okay? If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Bye for now.